everyone, and welcome to another episode of Aussie Tech Security. How are you doing? We're here today with Roger as per usual. Hi, Roger.
Hey, Glenn, how are you? Hey, everybody.
Not too bad. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Look, today, as always, we are brought to you by athwebhosting.com.au. If you're after some nice Australian-served web space, go there and check them out. It's affordable prices. And also, Roger, you are brought to us by rniconsulting.com.au.
Yes, that is correct.
And you can reach Roger there or on the Twitter at SME Security, or you can reach me on the Twitter at Aussie Tech Heads. All right, now today we have another subject for y'all, and it is the business continuity. Now, Roger, can you please just quickly explain, give us what's business continuity got to do with security in IT?
Well, business continuity is really part of the whole digital security environment, because if you get if something does happen, you want to be able to get back to where you were before that thing happened. And both disaster recovery, business continuity, and in a lot of ways resilience of a business comes down to being how secure you are.
Yes, and everyone needs to be secure, and a backup plan is essential. And yes, you don't want any troughs in the production line of your business. So, as far as business continuity goes, where does one start? Like when you sit down, you think, okay, look, I've never thought about what happens if water comes through the front door and goes halfway up the building, or whatever other scenario might happen. Where do we start with business continuity?
Well, business continuity is about keeping your business in a profitable way if something happens. So we're not going to talk about disaster recovery. We'll probably do that in another episode. But what business continuity does is it takes all of the risks that you can consider may happen. For instance, hacking might be one of them. Water coming through the door is another one. An earthquake. Anything along those lines. But business continuity also includes things like what happens is a fire on your block where your office is, and you can't get to your office for 2 days. So how do you manage that component of your business if you can't get in your front door anymore? And that's really what business continuity is all about.
So it starts as a as a thought, I suppose. So someone, the boss or you sit down and you think, okay, we've got to make a plan for this. What do you sit down? You draft a little bit of a flow chart, or you make up a plan. What sort of items should you be making sure that you have? So it'll say that the back room's on fire. What should you be gathering up to take with you as you run out the front door? That's
one thing, yes. But the other thing about business continuity is you really have to look at the risks to your business first. The risks to your business could include things like if you've got a gun salesman and he suddenly wins the lottery and he decides he's not going to work for you anymore, he's going to go out and have a party. Your gun sales have now gone in the toilet because he's no longer generating that revenue for you. So business continuity comes down to how are you going to assess that risk and cover that risk. So you even right down to if you're a CEO of a company, and again, you win the lottery. The CEO is usually the person who brings in the high-level business to a business. And if he goes, what happens to the business? Right. So you've got to look at those risks. And then once you know what the risks are, you can then work out what you're going to do about them. But the first step you really need to do is sit down and go, what are the risks to my business? And writing them out is a really good place to start. Where we, as a business, when we're doing this for a client, we will sit down on a whiteboard and literally write down what are the risks to the business. Okay, personnel, what are we going to have there? Physical risks, what is going to happen here? Digital risks, what are going to happen there? And all of that then becomes a part of the whole plan as you put it together.
So I guess you mentioned like people within the organisation, but it might also be external from the organisation, say like your IT support or something like that. Like what happens if a bomb falls on the IT support crew?
Yes, that's exactly right. And the other thing about business continuity, people forget that it's a whole of business concept. It's not just an IT. that server goes down and fails, what are we going to do about it? It's everything that happens in the business. How are you going to mitigate those risks to the business and make sure that they're not going to be a problem?
So I guess most of like internally, you probably would have like in a fairly large organisation, you'd have some sort of succession planning anyway.
Hopefully, yes.
And you could probably fall back on that if someone was to bow out. And I suppose, you just got to, and external people, you just got to make those contacts to get the backups in place. I suppose as far as infrastructure goes, like what sort of, I suppose, like say a building, how far do you go with where, say your building burns down, how far do you go with a backup plan for that?
Well, that's when you really have to look at the risks. Are the risks going to be all-encompassing? So in other words, if the building burns down, your first things are make sure your people are all right, make sure your business is going to be survivable if they lose the place where they're working. If it's a warehouse, then you have the problems of where you're going to have deliveries taken to and all this sort of stuff. And again, once again, you're looking at the overall impact on a business. And literally you can sit there and go, okay, office burns. What are we going to do with the people? What are we going to do with the equipment? Have we got everything in place to be able to go, okay, if we get a server from somewhere, we can start again over there in the far corner? Or are we going to be cloud-based and everybody can access the system no matter what happens? And the office then becomes a physical component. So it literally is, okay, what are we going to do about where we're going to work from? Can we work from somewhere else, or are we tied to where that office is?
Now, what would be the like say a reasonable time frame? So say the worst happens, the building burns down, your computers are gone, your machinery is gone. What would say is a reasonable time frame? Do you think you have a nice succession plan in place? So you've just got to organise another building and machinery, etc., etc. Is there a reasonable time frame, like a week or 2 weeks, and then an unreasonable time frame?
Yeah, well, I think there's a reasonable time frame, which is what the organisation. Now, every organisation is different, and every organisation has different priorities. One organisations might be make sure that the staff are all right and they're not a problem, especially if you're in a disaster, a natural disaster, for instance, a bushfire or a flood. Your first real priority is making sure your people are all right, and then you worry about whether you've got the equipment to be able to do what you do. So, in other words, if you're an accountant and you've got people coming to you, okay, your clients are going to come to you. Where are they going to meet you? What are you going to do? These are the things that come into your risk analysis, because you need to be able to say, well, our business relies on us going to other people. So it's not that important that the office is burnt down because all of my people are all right and they can still go out and do their job. And so the chance of someone burning down the building might be 1%. The chance of the impact of a business on the business because we're going to another office to do our work, the impact on the business is not going to be that great. And that's what you're looking for when you're doing the risk analysis, because you're looking at what is the chance it'll happen and how much of an impact, if it does happen, will it have on the business? And then what are we going to do about it?
I know,
so
like
those three components are really important.
Yeah, I know. Like burning the building down is a worst case scenario. There's a lot of things that can happen in between.
There's a saying that says the best thing for business continuity is the person across the road having their building burned down.
Exactly. Now, look, just a question that popped to mind. I don't know if you would know the answer or not, but as far as say general business insurance goes, and because like salaries are probably like one of the biggest expenses a business is going to have. If your business is down for, say, a month, you've got to get machinery from overseas or whatever. Does business insurance cover salaries, or is that just something you've got to?
It depends on the insurance that you've got. There are small business insurance plans, and they will cover everything from your income, your building itself, glass and breakage, and all that sort of stuff. But it is something that you really have to look around for, because people forget that if someone breaks a window, you may be down for 12 hours while someone comes and repairs it and all that sort of stuff. But if you're in a flood situation, not only have you got to wait until the flood has gone, You then have to worry about how you're going to clean up the place. Then you have to worry about how you're going to get back to work. So that length of time, you know that the flood's going to last, say, 7 days. You know it's going to be a clean up of probably another 7 days. So your income is actually now 14 days before you actually have something coming in through the door. Fair enough. Most people will be in the same situation around the area, especially if you're a local business, because everybody else is going through the same thing. But the trouble with insurance is you've got to make sure that if you are down for those 14 days, plus you still then have to ramp up to the situation of getting back on track, you may be down for a month, and what is the insurance going to cover? Are they going to cover salaries? Are they going to cover income? How much of salaries are they going to cover? And that's something you really have to look at the fine print of the insurance policy.
And I suppose going with the money side of things just for another second, another thing that you should be including in your plan would be like a backup for a finance backup. How are you going to pay the monthly rent or whatever if things happen? Obviously you're going to take out fire insurance if you're in a match testing factory.
How about we strike this one?
Yes. But so make sure you've got a plan. Now, who obviously the boss, you as the boss, you're not going to come out and give this job to the receptionist.
No.
Who would be really in charge of this? Does the buck stop with you? Well, it does, but can you delegate this type of thing, and who to?
You can to a level. You can delegate it to your management team, but your management team also have to remember that, as you said, you can't delegate it to a receptionist, but the receptionist has certain components of the business that you're probably not aware of. So you need to talk to everybody in the business. That's what I said. It's a whole of business, whole of organisation process, because you may not know that the person who makes the widgets out the back has to kick the machine every 3 times to get it to work.
Yeah.
That type of thing is what you need to have the knowledge about before you can make a decent business continuity plan.
It sounds like a bit like you might have to put on a wig and grow a beard and be an undercover boss or something.
Practically, because especially in large organisations, because you don't know what the individual areas of your business are really doing. You see the top part because you're talking to the manager of accounts or the manager of HR or the manager of building the widgets, but you don't actually know what goes on below that level, because fair enough, you're way too busy at that higher end to worry about the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
But that nitty-gritty is actually what keeps a business going.
And I suppose also, like, you mentioned before, as, if old Jimmy out the back, he won the lotto, he might just take off without even a goodbye, just
That's right.
an SMS in the next day, so long suckers.
Or a postcard from a tropical island, 3 days later.
That's right. That's right.
But that person might have intimate knowledge about how your business actually works. And it's not until you actually take them out. And this is one of the things about business continuity plans is you've got to test them. Because if it's not, it's just a theory. If you don't test it, and you literally say, well, okay, let's look at the risks and go, okay, what happens if we take Jimmy out and say, Jimmy, take 2 days off?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see what the business does. You're not contactable. And you are now in a situation where the people who are his understudies or doing other jobs or doing everything else now has to patch themselves in.
Yeah.
We've just done this for a client of ours. And one of the biggest single points of failure that they've got, well, there was 2 of them, were the person who writes the tenders. There was nobody who knew what he was doing. He would write a tender and win the business, and then we would go to the next guy who would then allocate everybody to do the job. These 2 always talked to each other, but they couldn't do each other's job.
Yes.
And when we pointed it out to the business, they went, okay, you take out Ralph, nobody's generating business. There's no large business coming through the door anymore. And if you take out Sally, when the large business comes through the door, it's just going to fall in a big heap because there's nobody there to do the job. So we literally said to them, okay, we need you to take 2 days off and go away after you've explained to people what you do. After that happened, they actually got into a situation where, yes, if something does happen, he wins the lottery, gets hit by a bus, whatever, it's not going to have a detrimental impact on the business. And this is really critical to any business.
Yeah, because I know a lot of places, you know, you do get a lot of dedicated staff, and they say, oh, look, if something happens when I'm on holidays, give me a ring. And all this sort of stuff. So maybe, as a boss, you may be saying, hey, listen, don't do that. Let's really don't do that unless we really have to. And then if we do really have to, we'll note that down and make sure that, you know, we fix that up. So how do you get around this? Like you would implement some sort of cross-training?
Cross-training. It's also another way of protecting yourself at a digital security level, because if you're cross-training people, especially in places like accounts, money receivable, money paying out, if you've got other people who know the job, you are then backstopping not only the people doing the job, but you're also putting a few fail-safes in place. So you can see that why is someone paying this when they didn't have to, or why are we paying everything in 14 days when everything is asked to be paid in 7? And these are the things that then come into your understanding of the business, because you can actually stand back and go, if we take out Sally, this is what happens. And also, you're looking at insider components of digital security as well. So if Sally is stealing from the organisation, you actually have the ability to stop it from happening again, because you can actually see, because someone else has gone into that job.
Yes.
And this is one of the big things that small business forgets is, yes, they are resilient and critical about who does jobs and everything else. But if you take that little person out of there, and they may have only a little cog in the wheel, you take that person out and the whole business stops until you can work out, A, what they did, and B, who's going to do the job now.
Yeah, and I guess like what you just said there, this is also good, for fraud prevention as well. Like, because as you said, like, you know, Sally could be doing she's a little small cog in the wheel, but you know it's all integral in the big picture. She could be just fiddling the books there a little bit. You put someone else in just to test your plan, and they go, well, what's going on here?
That's right.
You know,
and it really is a check, a safe, a way of checking what you're doing, and also a way of checking everybody else. But you're not really focused on that. That's not the whole idea behind it. There are other fraud prevention components that you can put in, but this actually then highlights where you have a situation where it could impact and have a detrimental impact on the business. And that's what business continuity is all about.
And I suppose, like, it depends on the size of the business that you're in charge of. Like, say, just getting back to the IT type of things, you know, so the whole business could be, you know, they're all their computers are popping up saying, upgrade to Windows 10, upgrade to Windows 10. One day they just all upgrade, and then you find that all your legacy programs might not work.
We've just gone through this experience already.
Right. Good.
We actually took a decision with a client, put everything new in there for Windows 10, only to find out that some of the components of one of their dedicated systems to what they do, parts of it didn't work. Like they can no longer SMS and send email from that component, and we get these wonderful little error messages and everything else. So you have to make decisions based off that type of, I suppose, recovery more than anything else. And that's again, when you're doing an upgrade or an update, or you're changing technology, you need to have a fail-safe or a rollback position you can take it back to, because again, you're looking at business continuity. You don't want to be down for 4 days while the IT people are fiddling around with a computer because you didn't think of that consequence. Yes. And those are really important part of any project in the IT world as well, is you have that position you can roll back to. Before you actually go, okay, this is now live, if we go, we've stuffed up, how far back do we have to go? How long is it going to take? What are we going to do about it?
So what would be the best way to try and control that particular situation? Like, would you, like, it's all good to say, we can go back a week or a day or whatever. But say there's other factors involved. Like, how would you, if you're a large enough company, would you just say, put a couple of computers aside, upgrade them, like test? Just do your due diligence in your testing, and just make sure that it all works. Take the time, and just make sure it just works before you roll it out.
Because the other thing about it is a lot of today's I suppose, productivity components are all database driven. So you need to know that if you're going from X to Y, you need to know that if you take the data out of X, is it going to fit into Y for one? How is it going to fit into Y? And are we going to have to change anything that's in there? Because, and then, as you said, run it as a separate environment, doing everything through that as well as the old system. Because you still need to have that old system doing what it's supposed to do, because that's your bread and butter. That's where your money's coming from.
Yeah.
So if you just suddenly go, well, we're going to go with the new system and half of it doesn't work, then the impact on your revenue is going to be pretty colossal.
And it might not just be, just the whole system fails. Like, say, I used to work at a bank, and every day we used to get printouts of all the transactions from the day before. So what had happened is, like, the central computer might go down, or they might be whatever's happening down there, or it just might be a power line is cut or something like that. And so we rely a lot on the computers. What happens if the data center's all right, but your little branch, someone's drilled through the Telstra cable or something, the data, your computers are offline. How do you operate if that's going to take a day or so? Well, I suppose that when I was with the bank, we had the actual printouts. We could find the balances of everyone's account as of the day before. And so I suppose you got to look into just things like that.
Well, the other thing about business continuity is don't look at there's a technical solution to a problem, but there's also a human solution to a problem. And what you said there is probably very true. You may not need to do you may need to do a dump of all the accounts every month, just to make sure that you know what's going on, and also if something does go pear-shaped, are you going to have a backup to be able to do anything?
Yeah.
Because if your computers are down totally, then what happens if, going back to the scenario you just said, the power cable to the building gets cut? Okay, now you've lost all of your systems. It doesn't matter where they were located. There's you have no internet access.
Yep.
And if that's down for 3 days, what are you going to do about it? You're going to work from home? Are you going to set up an office somewhere else? Those are the decisions you really need to make before it happens, because you don't want to be in a situation where the disaster is your test of the disaster recovery and the test of your business continuity.
Yeah, and another simple thing could be even just down to the minute things like, okay, power goes out, you're a retail shop, how are you going to do credit cards? And all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if you still get them these days, but do you still have the manual
the click-clacks?
The click-clackers, yeah. I suppose you do. You get one of those.
Sometimes, yeah. But again, it comes down to, because we no longer rely on signatures. So and pin and chip pin and chip is now the driving force behind it. So what do? And if you do collect all this money on the click-clack machine, how are you going to get that into the system?
Yes, well then maybe your backup would be to get one of those little Wi-Fi credit card thingies onto your phone. It'd be slower and more painful, but at least you're up and running. So so things like that. Everything you got to think about everything, haven't you?
That's right. Especially if it comes down to revenue. Where revenue is literally the lifeblood of your organisation. If you haven't got revenue coming in, then you need to make sure that it's not going to be long before revenue comes back in again.
Yes, because the expenses don't stop.
No,
they keep coming.
That's right. Yeah.
And I suppose, and another good thing to be looking at is like public relations, of how do you manage this outage or downtime in the public arena, say Facebook or whatever. Probably from your experience, probably a good idea to put up on your Facebook, hey, we've been flooded, we won't be back for 30 days, but we're still taking phone calls. Here's a emergency mobile phone number or something. So things like that, in your experience, that works good and helps goodwill.
Yeah, totally. Your PR part is also part of your business continuity, because you need to be able to tell your clients and your staff as well what is going on, when they're expected back, when you will be selling things again. All of that is part of this business continuity stuff.
Do you think that some companies, do you think some people will just go, like, say, I don't know, say a bank, they might say, just look, don't tell anyone, just flick that computer switch and we'll see if we can work without it?
Yeah, well, that's what the testing of the business continuity plan is all about. There's also other ways you can do it. You can sit all your management around a table and have a I suppose an administrator sit there and go, okay, we're going to run a business continuity plan. You're now dead. You just had a heart attack. The guy at the back corner has just cut his leg off.
Yeah.
Okay, how are you going to work? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and those, the person who lost his leg might be part of the manufacturing team. Okay, and okay, your manufacturing now goes down. You're now going to have people who are going to be requiring you to deliver things that you haven't got anymore because you're no longer manufacturing to the same speed. So what are you going to do? Are you going to tell people? Are you not going to tell people? This is something you can do sitting around a table. You can sit there and go, okay, this is the scenario. We've been flooded out. Next question, okay?
Yeah.
IT staff, what have you done?
Yes.
What have we got as a backup? Where do we keep it? What are we going to do with it? These are parts of this whole overall, if it's broken, let's fix it type attitude, because we need to do that as a business.
So the continuity plan, how would it exist? It exists in a report, in a booklet type form?
It should be on site, and everybody should read it. It should be part of your induction process for a business, because even though it can be a very big document, there should be a 1 or 2 pager that you can slap in the front of it, or part of your induction process, that says, okay, if you're if we have a flood, you assemble over here. If you can't get to the office, this is what you do. All of that should be part of the business continuity plan. But you also need to keep a copy of it off-site somewhere, because if it's in the office and the office burns down, now how are you going to enact your business continuity plan if you haven't got access to it?
And I guess that the plan should never be like cast in stone.
No. Business continuity actually develops around what you're doing. I said something about resilience earlier in the broadcast. Resilience means that you have the ability to make a decision on the fly that is not only detrimental to your business, but will also augment your business. So you can see an opportunity because you have all of these resilient components, and business continuity is one of them, so that you can see an opportunity and go, crap, we can build the widgets that are going to fill that hole. Okay, yes. Because we now have that capability to think on our feet, be agile, we're capable of doing that. So it's not only for the bad times, it's also for the good times as well.
And maybe even an offshoot or something of doing one of these plans could be, you could identify cost savings at the same time.
Yeah.
So
it really is one of those things where you can sit down and go, okay, this is how the organisation works, and it's really good because a lot of people don't know how the organisation works. Yeah. They don't know what Joe is doing in the background there. They don't know how the HR people are working and who does what and why. And all of this information is lost if something happens to those people. So you've got to start documenting it and getting it to a point where it becomes part of the business.
Now, the continuity plan, is that a service you guys offer, Roger?
We do it for our clients as part of our client process. For instance, if we pick up a new client and they haven't got a business continuity, we'll sit down and talk to them about it, and then come up with a strategy for creating one and looking at disaster recovery and backups and resilience and culture and all that sort of stuff as well.
So if people are interested in business continuity, they don't have to be located where you are. You can go virtual, I suppose.
Literally virtual. Skype's one of those things you can do anywhere. So
true. Yeah.
As long as they have a access to the internet, we can then talk.
You can guide them through.
Them. Yeah,
good stuff.
And if they're local around us or in Sydney, we're quite happy to go up and have a chat. Sit around a table and talk to people about it as well.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Is there anything else on this? Without going, right into the nitty gritty, but
no, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of it. So.
Yeah, as a little half-hour overview. That's.
But it is one of those big processes that is part of an organisation's, I suppose, structure more than anything else. Most small businesses that have grown into a large business haven't got these things in place because everybody knows what everybody else is doing, sort of.
Yes.
And you don't really realise that if as I said, if Joe wins the lottery and buggers off to the Greek islands for 3 weeks, what are you going to do about it?
Look, it might even just be something as simple as the receptionist's password on the PC.
Yeah.
Or the password she's put on the backup.
Yeah, or the password she's put on her voicemail. That type of thing.
Just simple stuff.
Simple stuff that you suddenly realise that, oh shit, now what are we going to do? Now how are we going to get into that? Who are we going to talk to? Is the IT involved? What are they going to do?
Yeah, and how long do we have to start sending, death certificates to organisations to get the information? What do we have to do?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well that's great, Roger. Thank you very much. That's enlightened me on
good
business continuity planning, and I might think about it. But I'm it, so I know everything. When I go, that's it.
Yeah, bugger the clients.
That's right,
I'm lucky enough to have a couple of people who are relatively good at their jobs, and I just say, we need to do this, and off they go on. And they're quite happy. So,
like I do. I have got my passwords to various things in an envelope, and someone knows where that is. So, I suppose if the worst does happen, then at least people can get up and running and hopefully continue it on. All right, that's great. So that's another good episode. Thank you, Roger. So again, you can contact Roger on the Twitter at SME Security, or by going to his website at R for Roger, N for Nelly, I for Igloo Consulting, rniconsulting.com.au. All right, and don't forget ATH web hosting. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, don't forget them.
All right, thanks, Roger. That's been a pleasure, and we shall see you again soon.
Yeah, no worries, Glenn. I'll talk to you then.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.